The Hunger Games is one of my most favorite book series of all time. That's pretty evident in my previous videos, and today I thought it would be fun to rank all of the books from worst to best. These would include the main trilogy, or The Hunger Games, Catching Fire, and Mockingjay, along with the two prequel books, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and The Sunrise on the Reaping. One thing to note before I formally begin is that I do love all of these books on their own. They're absolutely well written, and I personally think that the Hunger Games franchise as a whole is a modern classic. It's such a great series, which is why it's pretty hard to rank them, but I guess some have to be at the bottom. Before getting into it though, spoiler warning for all the books because I'll be going through them all. And with that, let's get started. My least favorite Hunger Games book has to be Mockingjay. Mockingjay is the third and final book in the main trilogy, and before I continue, I just want to say that I did love this installment of the series. It's such an emotional yet epic end to the Hunger Games saga, but it's my least favorite for some reasons. I remember mentioning in my 2020 book recap video that I didn't fully finish Mockingjay because I already watched the movies and got spoiled, but I did end up reading the book eventually. I still loved it, but it's my least favorite Hunger Games book simply because it's the hardest book to read in the franchise in my opinion. Mockingjay immediately took up after Catching Fire's cliffhanger, wherein we learned that District 12 was destroyed, and Peeta and Mellark along with other tributes were taken by the capital. It's a very heartbreaking and tragic part of the book, and Katniss was very and rightfully emotional about all of that. Reading Katniss's perspectives in Mockingjay was both interesting, yet kind of painful, and I can't blame Suzanne Collins for doing this. Katniss has every right in that book to be emotional and heartbroken because of everything she's been through, especially with the pressure of being the face of the revolution. All Katniss wanted was to survive the games for her family, and she got caught up in a revolution without her consent. I would honestly say that I found Katniss's emotions and perspectives realistic enough, and I sympathize with her throughout the book. Added to the many character deaths like Finnick and Prims, I find this book to be the hardest one to get through because the tone and the pacing was really catered to Katniss's emotions. It's dark with hints of tragedy, and it's probably the most emotional one in the franchise to me. I had to take breaks from reading Mockingjay because of how heavy it feels sometimes, and that's kind of controversial to me because I'm the type of reader to absolutely flip the pages immediately in a book, so Mockingjay was definitely a pretty hard read. After Mockingjay is The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. It kind of pains me to place this book so low because I genuinely think it's so underrated. A lot of people found this book hard to read simply because it's pretty common to hate on Coriolanus Snow, or the main character of this book. I would even agree with that. I hated Snow in the trilogy, and reading his perspectives made me pause sometimes because, as I mentioned in my Snow video last time, he was such a jerk to some people. I also mentioned in my old book review, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, that the pacing was pretty slow at some point. I sometimes felt like there was too much internal monologue on Snow's part, but I couldn't fully blame Suzanne Collins for that. I genuinely think it's a great way to see Snow's thoughts, and it made fans like me truly see who he is as a person. Aside from those downsides though, I genuinely enjoyed this book. I've been rereading it recently, and I realized just how much of an underrated gem this book was. It's the longest book in the entire Hunger Games franchise because it truly focused on Snow, his backstory, his emotions, and even to how he turned into the person he was in the trilogy. This book felt like the missing puzzle piece, the Hunger Games somehow, and it kind of humanized Snow. We learned just how much his upbringing and past shaped him, and how he could have been a good person, but he gave in to the dark side instead. Snow's character development in this book is honestly incredible, and that's why it pains me to place it this low, but I guess that's the beauty of the Hunger Games to me. All of the books are great, and it's so hard to rank them. After The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is The Hunger Games itself, or the first book that started it all. A lot of fans like me would say that The Hunger Games is a modern classic. It has a vivid world with characters you get attached to early on, and it's been forever since I read this book, but I remember just how much I enjoyed it. I love reading Katniss's perspectives, and she felt like a very relatable protagonist. I don't really have that much detail to say in this book because, as I mentioned earlier, it's been a while since I reread this, but I remember feeling so intrigued by Panem, especially because I got attached to the characters pretty quickly. Added to the cliffhanger ending with Peeta and Katniss using the berries against the capital, I honestly think this was a really great book, and it made me want to pick up the next one immediately. I remember reading this book so quickly because of how much I wanted more of it, and I would even say it's one of the most engaging YA novels out there. After the first Hunger Games book is The Sunrise on the Reaping. The Sunrise and the Reaping is the most recent Hunger Games book, and I honestly really enjoyed it. It talks about Haymitch Abernathy's story, and it's a heartbreaking roller coaster of emotions. Like, that's pretty much how I would describe this book. I don't think it's as hard to read as Mockingjay, but this book isn't something that I would easily reread because of how tragic Haymitch's character feels. He lost everything after his Hunger Games, and even if I expected it, because we kind of knew this already from the trilogy, Haymitch's perspectives were so painful and powerful. Reading the book was like heartbreak after heartbreak as you see Suzanne Collins foreshadow and reference things from all of the books. From the revolution that Plutarch pulled Haymitch into, to Snow taunting Haymitch and destroying everything Haymitch ever loved, to the different character deaths, and even to more information on the Covey, this book masterfully compiled all of the Hunger Games books into one whole book. I think it's very brilliant, and I just know its movie adaptation coming out next year is going to break my heart again, especially when I see the epilogue. I really hope they keep it in the movie because that moment honestly felt like a nice ending to such a tragic story. It leaves you with a bittersweet kind of happiness and sadness at the same time, and I'll admit that I was teary-eyed when I got to that last line. Like, Haymitch thinking of Lenore Dove one last time with the people he cared about, and finally telling his story to Katniss and Peeta was such a good way to end his character. Ultimately though, this book broke me in the best possible way, and I guess that's why I would say it's really up there as one of my most favorite books. And last but not the least is Catching Fire. Catching Fire is the second book of the main trilogy, and it's hands down my most favorite one. I don't even know how to start this because I just remembered loving the book and movie of Catching Fire. It introduced us to characters like Johanna, Finnick, Mags, Wirus, and a whole other bunch, and the cliffhanger ending was just perfectly epic. I remembered reading this book in just 2 days because I genuinely couldn't put it down, and when I got tired of manually reading it by myself, I even listened to the audiobook just to hear more of what was happening in the book. Like, that's how much I love this book. It's honestly the best Hunger Games book, and I always go for this movie whenever I want to rewatch the franchise or whenever I'm bored. The 75th Hunger Games arena was incredible, the pacing was just right, and I just love the characters so much. It's a really good book, and I believe it deserves its spot as the best Hunger Games book and movie. And that's how I rank the Hunger Games books. So how about you? How would you rank these books? Let me know in the comments down below.